I love Africa because some of these stories are so crazy. The one guy told us his dad was the local dentist for whatever the dictator of Congo was for all those years, but he couldn't solve a toothache. So they literally hired Concorde to fly him to Paris. It was absolutely crazy.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Calling Home. I'd like to thank all the new subscribers. You guys are fantastic, and all the people that are enjoying the content and haven't subscribed just yet, please consider doing so by clicking the link down below and hitting the bell icon so you can get all the new episodes as they pop up. Today's guest might not look it, but he's one of the most important names in the African fashion industry. Simon Deiner is the founder of Group of Creatives, a Cape Town-based fashion show production company that produces platforms all across the African continent. They are passionate about linking African designers with opportunities to grow their labels and show the world that African design can compete with the best. He's also the founder of SA Menswear Week and Week of Fashion, which is now the biggest fashion show on schedule in South Africa. We talk about how technology and creativity go hand in hand, how African designers have taken the world by storm, and the challenges of producing fashion shows in Africa and how he overcomes them. So without further ado, a man I'm privileged to call my friend, Simon Deiner. Who would have thought that when we were riding our mountain bikes together in Hedonism in the cane fields that I would end up in Milan shooting fashion and you'd become the impresario of fashion shows for basically the whole African continent.
It's weird. Who would have ever thought that? Riding bicycles through the sugarcane and then opposite ends of the world in similar industries.
It's madness because we really shouldn't be in this game at all.
I still know nothing about fashion. Just a heads up. I've got to disclaimer everything.
Yeah, but when we were kids, you were the tech guy. You were the guy that was always on the ball with all the technical stuff, all the fun toys. You were coding. You had internet before everybody else. How much of that has played a part in your business today?
I suppose indirectly, a big part of our production business is actually a piece of software. It's an app that we license to some of the world's biggest production companies. It's in the background, it runs on iPads, and it keeps those global fashion weeks happening. So indirectly, yes, but I actually just went into corporate and brand strategy and luxury goods, and it was awful. I don't know how people get up every morning and sit in an office. So I survived about 2.5 months. And then I said, there must be a better way to do this. And then, yeah, it's the creative side. I always say our company name is the word creative in it. But we just follow business and we deliver business solutions for fashion weeks in 13 countries now. It's kind of crazy how it grew in that journey. But yeah, it's very technology driven, and we've used it to sort of really lean out. Where in the past there were monster budgets and you'd have 500 people on a fashion week. Now you've got a minuscule budget and everybody has to do 2 or 3 things, except for the French. They still vary in their own ways and they'll only do what they want. But for the large part, it's really just doing more with less and trying to use technology. So I suppose so.
Yeah, that's incredible. One of the things that comes out in the other podcast, because this is Calling Home, this is the spin-off. It's more about me reaching out to African entrepreneurs. But on the creativity side, the thing that comes out, especially in photography, is this need of the photographer, in this case, to be almost an engineer, so very, very interested in things, as well as having this incredible need to be creative and to make something that's original and speaks to people, right? So you've always had this mix together, because you were also highly creative. I remember you did a fake leg for your dog as a science project. You had a 3-legged dog. And this sort of blossomed into an amazing career, all from a Cape Town base, which is incredible, because we do have the know-how in South Africa, but often the position is makes it complicated for people to get noticed. And you've really been able to branch out and become a global business.
Yeah, it's the biggest problem is that we are literally at the other end of the world to a lot of our clients. So we do a lot in the UK, we do a lot in France, we do a lot in like only New York really in America and Dubai, but our core business is actually in Africa. And, you know, whether it's Nigeria or Ghana or Tanzania or Mozambique. Sure, I think we've produced all the big fashion weeks, and kind of as we got busier, we decided to focus on the ones that met the criteria that, you know, is it a credible fashion week? It's you know, and it's a business side. There's a lot of people, and a lot of those fashion weeks, especially in Africa, they treat it as entertainment. It's a night out, but those designers are literally small businesses making stuff. And we've really tried to prioritize that. That's why, as we've scaled back in Africa, we've kept on the ones that keep those same ideals. So essentially, it's also the biggest ones in the continent. So in West Africa, it's Lagos Fashion Week. In East Africa, it's Swahili Fashion Week. And then we own our own one in South Africa, which is now the biggest scheduled on schedule. So menswear week grew into Week of Fashion, which grew into women's wear collections. And now that's the biggest fashion week in South Africa. And we'd like to think it's still got that cool underground edge. Because as I say, we're not fashion people, but we like stuff with a bit of an edge. So yeah, but we are at the end of the world. So as long as we're traveling, and clients don't feel those 6-hour layovers in Ethiopia and we arrive on time, then yeah, we can still be competitive.
Yeah, you're uniquely positioned because you travel all over the African continent. Now, often Africa is seen as like just one entity. If you speak to an American or you speak to a European, it's just like an African thing. Maybe South Africa is a little different because of our history, so it's a bit more well known as like a single entity. But in general, it's always an African problem. It's never a Ugandan or a Nigerian problem. Traveling around, do you feel the difference between the East and West, the South? Are there massive cultural differences, or not necessarily differences, but even just challenges from different parts of the continent?
Yeah, it is crazy. I always say, you know, you have Cape Town, and then you have South Africa, and then you have the rest of Africa. Lagos is catching up really, really quickly, but there's huge cultural, there's huge also just dynamics in how people approach things, and it's been a bit of a challenge. In fact, I'll go even further just to kind of contextualize the African discussion we're having. But we're working on a project for a big Chinese client, and it's amazing how we were chosen because we spend the time to understand and work with people. And our goal is also, when we go to those countries, that a lot of them are very, very, well, choose my words here. They very, very basic in terms of what you can get your hands on. Of course, Lagos is everything you want, but even a country as developed as Tanzania, for example, and we do Swahili Fashion Week in Dar es Salaam, and Dar es Salaam's put more skyscrapers up in 5 years than Cape Town has put up in the last 50 years, I think. So, but when we want lighting, and this is where a lot of, for example, when a lot of the former French colonies, they still bring French teams out to execute. And recently Chanel did their first African show in Dakar, and all the techs arrived for the site visit, but they couldn't get any tech. They couldn't understand why they can't pick the phone up and just get something. So the lesson that we learn, especially in South Africa, and as we grew and we've taken throughout all our projects, whether it's in Javits Center in New York or it's in Federal Palace in Lagos, it's you've got to learn to outthink the problems and really just try and solve those to get the end results in a similar way, maybe without the resources, either financially or with that kind of equipment. So, you know, luckily Chanel, they've got the budget, we can air freight stuff in. But Swahili Fashion Week, we've used security lights before, and when they were all placed quite carefully above the catwalk, no one really knew that they weren't catwalk lights. And in the photos and the videos, it looked fantastic. And I hate to say it, but it actually gave a much nicer light than our normal either Source 4 or Park cans could do. But we just couldn't get them in one of the biggest cities. So go off and buy 40 little security lights and wire them up and have to do the job. Luckily, that's few and far in between. But yeah, I remember one year we had normal lights in Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but inside they just had normal house bulbs. So yeah, it's a little bit crazy. It's yeah. That was a cool show. We did it in where the Rumble in the Jungle took place. So like all the boxing guys, it was really, really cool to kind of go and hear the stories. How I love Africa because some of these stories are so crazy. The one guy told us his dad was the local dentist for whatever the dictator of Congo was for all those years, but he couldn't solve a toothache. So they literally hired Concorde to fly him to Paris. It was absolutely crazy. So you get to meet some crazy people, and yeah, whether it's finding this insane architecture house in the Delta in Nigeria as we going for lunch, we've had some great adventures.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's incredible. That's the thing. It's always a pity that traveling around Africa is so complicated. So it's an awesome privilege to be able to do it as part of your work. And also having access to these places where most people don't get to is basically the best part of our job. I managed to shoot at the Buena Vista Social Club in Cuba once with no people there, and that's just something you don't pay for. It's like no MasterCard's going to get you there. But talking about those lights, I've often thought of using those freestanding battery operated or generator operated kits that you can get for roadworks. They're just like a generator with a stand and the lights on top of it. Those are really awesome, really portable, and I've always thought that those would be amazing for a photo shoot. With the right modifier, it would be like really, really good. You could just they're super portable and you could be anywhere with them. I don't know, it could be awesome.
Yeah, I did, and it's amazing, especially in the last 10 years, that the move from, especially for catwalk lighting, from like hot halogen-based tungsten lighting through to LED, and like the early LED, especially in Africa, if you had a slightly dark skin, and it was Chinese, the models are either green or blue, and because they didn't have a white source in it, it was like RGB. So to make white, it was green and blue switched on, and our clients don't understand. But it's a light. It must light the people. The technical company says you can do it. So, trying to raise that bar across Africa has been incredibly difficult. But I'm strangely enough, as a non-fashion person, I'm really passionate about it. The business side and connecting from fashion weeks into global fashion weeks and watching them. And, we've had some designers that started, we hunted them out. I once saw the most amazing photo shoot of this albino model Sanele in this like iridescent outfit, and I was like, wow, I want that designer to come and show at our first menswear week. And I was dealing with a super irritating kid who was trying to convince us to go and photograph and help at the Cape Tech end of year graduation show. So as I walked in backstage, I saw this outfit and I was like, who is this? I've seen this, and I'm trying to find this person. He's like, that's me. And it's been interesting because now Lucanio is like one of the biggest designers out of South Africa after winning the Karl Lagerfeld Prize. And it's weird. It all started so small, and that leapfrog was purely seeing a photo, seeing him backstage at his grad show, not knowing it's him, but wanting to throttle him, but wanting him because I didn't know it was him. And it's been amazing. It's been great. And now we're looking at all these global African brands slowly getting out there. Like gone are the days of like, oh, you're Africa, so it's like a wax print and color, and the design was very, very simple. Now it's globally and properly competitive, and it's amazing seeing the celebrities abroad and the big department stores stocking people that, like, I remember when they were just them, whether it was Tokyo James just with a sewing machine by himself, and now he's dressing everyone from Lewis Hamilton to Beyonce. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, the platform That's is awesome. Everything. Yours is a springboard for so many creatives, because the hardest thing is getting your stuff seen. And so if you get somebody with a bit of credibility to show your stuff, that's really a big help for any creative.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think like a fashion week is this magical recipe of mystique, but actually a fashion week is just a marketing channel. And that's what I was saying earlier about some of the African ones we don't work on anymore. It's not unique to Africa. I think the UK alone has something like 40 fashion weeks. But if you're not showing on London Fashion Week, you really are wasting your time. It's not entertainment, it is business, and we're quite passionate about that. And it's really just that marketing channel. And if it's a credible fashion week with other good fashion weeks, and to throw in a bicycle analogy, there's 128 links on a bicycle chain. You just need one to fail, and all other 127, it's as good as nothing. You're not going anywhere. And that's why we work hard not to dilute or pad our schedules. If there's only 4 good designers that season, we are only going to show 4 of them. And a lot of platforms don't get that. It's whoever can pay, they're welcome to showcase. And yeah, that's been the challenge in Africa. Is also it's been an education to slowly walk people, and it's a 10-year journey on average for each designer to get to that breakthrough point.
Yeah, so it's a bit like that 10,000 hour sort of concept.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So do you see yourself also as sort of a breeding ground, like a nursery area for young creatives? Do you feel that mentorship is like a really important part of what you're doing, so that you don't only take them when they form, but you also create them and actually then put them out into the world and explain to them how things work?
Yeah, so often, when I was still photographing a lot of fashion and fashion weeks, the only camera I really touch now is shooting our fashion weeks we produce. Because my team is like, please just get out of our hair when the show started. Just take your camera and shoot it. So, but from that is I used to give a lot of talks at photography schools, and then that morphed into fashion schools. And I always would start off by saying, you all you creatives, you really need to do a year of business. So once you pass that, you can study photography, or later at fashion schools, you can study fashion. And I got carried off the stage twice at different fashion schools, because apparently that's really bad for business, like telling kids they must study business first and then only can do something creative. But part of that really is in fashion, like this coming up, we've started something with Cape Town Fashion Council called Grad Week. So it's the graduates that are like identified quite early, and they can then start getting into the system. So we've made these zones, which are quite interesting. This London Fashion Week has implemented this now, where you're new talent, then you're an emerging designer, then you become an established designer, then you become like a headliner or something like that. So it's also interesting because it's not necessarily education. Some of the most successful designers, especially in South Africa, strange enough, they were all accountants before, and they just were like, screw this corporate life, I can't do it, I want to be a fashion designer. And it's amazing because they're actually doing really, really well. But also it's not about, it's not about time either. You can be a fashion designer for 30 years and still be mega shit. Like there's so many of them. And we have a lot of designers that call themselves established designers, that keep applying over and over again for platforms. And our curation teams, and we're quite different, because we don't just have a bunch of fashion people living in a bubble around a table to discuss it. So no one really knows who the rest of the curation team is. And we've got some well-known architects. Well, we've got 2 of them. We've got media. We've got people who work in print design. We've got ad agency. We've got 1 or 2 fashion people as well, because fashion doesn't live in a bubble. So it's all those tinfoil looking outfits are amazing, and all the fashion people will just be like spazzing out, loving them. But the rest of the world, we're all really looking at them wearing our t-shirts and stuff going, who and what the hell is that? Like we were literally just talking about it in the office this morning with I think Sam Smith wore an inflatable suit to the recent I can't think of what the ceremony, I think it was the Grammys that just took place. I'm not sure. And everyone was like, it's so crazy. It's not, but literally it was just an inflatable version of what David Bowie wore years ago. So it was like really, really interesting. There's a lot of full circle, but also outside of fashion. I can assure you, my friends I go mountain biking with are like, that's a bunch of weirdos. So we try and keep it not too conceptual, because as nice as it is, it really, and as you as a photographer, you could shoot amazing stuff with it, but at the end of the day, we would be going through too many designers too often, because they can't make a living, they crash out, they become costume designers or something. And yeah, that's like my long waffle, essentially, to say it's to figure out the kids really early on who can go the distance, and that's our goal. And it's amazing seeing them now, and knowing we gave them their first shows. It's kind of crazy, actually.
The balance of being edgy and also commercial is a really tough one. Very few have actually managed to pull it off successfully just by being edgy all the time. Maybe Alexander McQueen or Thierry Mugler. But the really big brands like Gucci and Prada, which are like number 1 and 2 at the moment, they're pretty safe in what they do. Every now and again they bring out something crazy, but they're pretty safe.
Yeah, it's what pays the bills. And I think a lot of the fashion design students, they get that avant-garde, what's it called? They like a one semester go crazy, and they like, oh wow, I can totally do this, but they don't realize that that's going to hang in their cupboard forever and not really sell. So yeah, it's important that, especially where, like in South Africa, there's limited resources, and it's really, really expensive already to be a fashion student or any creative student. So to try and just sharpen their pencil as soon as possible, but not make it too boring, because you want a little bit of excitement. And I think there is something in it if you're already committed to be a fashion designer, and the challenges are absolutely just exponential, like access to just getting it made. Like every designer, even our bigger ones, come to us and they're like, you don't know any CMTs, and getting fabric and likely digital printing. So technology is helping, and a lot of those young designers through social media and online already establishing themselves really, really easily, compared to some of those designers even 10 or 15 years ago. So yeah, to answer your first question, but much later, the technology for everyone, the people who know how to use it seem to be leapfrogging those that are kind of not into it.
Yeah, you sort of need everything. You need to know the business side, how it works. You need to know the production side, how it works, all the social media. You really have to be on the ball with a bit of everything. And if you're not on the ball, you really need somebody that does know how to do that stuff to get it done for you. But it has to be done.
Yeah, but I'm old, as I was saying. I've never downloaded TikTok, and I had to have people explain Chat GPT to
You
me.
mean
Sorry?
you're not even checking out some thoughts on TikTok? That's all it's good for, really.
It's terrible. I share awful Instagram stories with everybody. That's about my social media.
Yeah, at least
these
you've
days.
gotten off Facebook. That's a step in the right direction, at least. I've tried ChatGPT for a couple of things, and it's really interesting. It's an interesting little game to play. I'm just worried it's going to kill my business. That's a bit of a hectic one.
The AI stuff is really, really crazy, because a lot of designers are talking about it as we're chatting to them at the moment. And it's scary just how quickly in the last 6 months it's advanced, and how people are starting to link one kind of AI with another one. And yeah, it's worrying, actually.
Yeah, you can actually get ChatGPT to interface with other image producing AIs and see what comes out from that mix. And they come out with some pretty cool things. I know that e-commerce is going to be in a bad place in the next 5 years, at least for photographers anyway. People will just have like a screen in their houses, like a digital mirror where they can just try things on. It'll be vertical with a little camera, and they'll just try things on from whatever e-commerce site they're going to end up on. All e-commerce photography is for is just to show proportions anyway. So everybody knows that the models have been retouched and to shit and clamps all over the place. And
You're right.
so it doesn't really matter. If I can see the proportions, even if it's not like the actual outfit, then it's fine. No?
Yeah, I've actually got a friend who's busy rolling out a project where everyone will end up with a code. And a lot of e-com sites globally are, I think Matches Fashion has just bought into it, where you go to, there's physical places you go to and literally get measured up, and you end up with this random code, and every garment that everybody sells has been measured, and an algorithm has figured out whichever is the best fit for you. So as you're saying, that is just the next part of it. So like if I don't even have to think about my size when I log into a online store, I don't even have to choose my size. I just have to add to cart because it has already worked out in that cut or style, whichever one will fit me the best. So that's kind of scary.
The technological mind in me is thinking it's amazing. That's going to be awesome just to be able to buy clothes with one click, just looking at things. I'll just choose a loose fit or skinny fit and it's done. But the business side is very worried about what's going to be happening. So hopefully this podcast picks up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
But maybe you have to cut this out of the podcast because we've got a project that was pre-pandemic, and it's all about creators and YouTube and podcasts, and we tried to do it. Unfortunately, the city of Cape Town, it's very difficult to deal with. Let me just stop there because we continually butting heads, and I have the mayor's office phoning me to stop, telling me to stop riling up the events department and everything. But in all honesty, now I don't know if you heard South Africa. Our government had this harebrained idea to sponsor a football team in the UK. I'm not sure if that reached, yeah, if that reached you, but South Africa, like I didn't attend a meeting that week where anyone wasn't like the ideas are getting stupider and stupider. But I kind of sat back in one of the meetings and I said, holy crap, this is, if they've got budget, we can finally execute the last part of this project. So I reached out to a friend who actually does work for tourism in South Africa. And he came back and he's like, why do you want so little? And I was still like, shit, I asked for double what we need. So the goal really is to grow African content. I can't say much more, but maybe when we're done, I'll drop the with you. But it's interesting because Africa has been late to picking up on YouTube, on a lot. While we do have some huge social stars on like Instagram and I suppose TikTok and stuff, it's compared to the rest of the world, it's not even there, I think. And with the YouTube, originally part of the conference was to raise the ad rates on any African content because you have to build quality and you have to build followers. And we kind of came up with this idea because I know one or two super big US and Euro YouTubers, or whenever they come out, we just hang out together. And I was just saying like, and they were saying like, people bid to get content or adverts in front of their channels, and it can go up to $20 an exposure for some of the crazy channels, and they get half of that. Yet in South Africa, like literally you get a lunch bar or a toothpaste advert in front of your YouTube, and it's like 2 South African cents for like 5 exposures. So it's like completely crazy. But if we can get that up and the audiences up on the people that participate in it, it's a great side project. And for us, again, we own a lot. So we own like Bike Fest, we own the Wedding Expo, we own a Healthy Living Expo. We're launching another like a small tech expo, and we do all of this just so we can have enough money in the bank to pay for a fashion week because we have no sponsors. So this is why we do all these other random projects. Because twice a year we have like R1 million bill to throw a fashion week party. So
R1 million is actually pretty good. It's like what's that, 50,000 euros? It's not even a lot of money, really.
It's a lot of money. Let's just put it this
way. It's
a
lot of money, but it's not that much.
No, look, compared to like competing fashion week budgets and stuff, it's really not a lot. But to put it into perspective, if I didn't do it, I could settle my bond on my house. And for reference, the one during the pandemic, when we didn't do it, we actually had a really good year during pandemic, despite being in the space that we are. And again, it was technology. We were live streaming fashion shows like from 2010 already, even earlier. You know, when you had 4 people log in to watch 30 seconds of a show and you got all excited. So we'd kind of been set up in advance to do all right. When the pandemic hit, we did a lot of virtual. But when we didn't have to do physical events with guests, it was amazing. I could build a house because I could actually pay myself properly. And yeah, it was great. I was like, maybe we should stop doing these fashion weeks because we'd have a lot more money in the bank. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it's a bit of that Mr. Beast format where he takes all the profit and puts it right back into the next creation, and just keeps
The logic
pulling out
is
content
at
all
some
the
point
time.
it's
It's
got
awesome.
to pay off, but we're going into our 17th season of Menswear Week, and I keep a running total in a spreadsheet. Every one at the end, I take the budget and I paste it in. And when I see the one at the bottom, you know why I look like I'm on heroin and not sleeping, because I'm like, I am actually insane. It's like, let's just can this whole thing and rather just, I don't know, coke and whores for like everybody. I don't know.
Well, that'll be the last one where you decide to stop, and then the next year you'll just go mad on coke and horse.
What we're doing now is we're really trying to bring more people in that we can hand it over to the next generation. But it's difficult. Everyone wants to do it, but nobody actually wants to put the work in and raise the money. It's really a crappy job, and everyone just wants to sit in the front row. So we'll keep trying, but in the meantime, yeah, we'll have to keep working to keep paying for this.
Yeah, so it's a bit like Formula One for Ferrari or Mercedes, where it's a money pit, but you need it to keep the image of the brand really high, and that way you can put yourself next to brands like Chanel or Gucci or whatever. So then be cool by association.
The nice thing is it actually allowed us to develop an app which is called Show Pro, which I'm allowed under NDA. I'm not allowed to say some of the shows that run on the back end of it, but you may just have. So I kind of said it without saying it. And the production companies use and license the app, and it's like been a great revenue stream to cover our back end expenses and salaries and things, because yeah, it's simplified the size of the teams, and also it removes a lot of where human error can creep into a fashion week or a fashion show, because once you pull that pin out and it starts, you can't put it back in. It's like a hand grenade. You pulled it out, and as somebody once said to me, it's kind of like producing a fashion week properly is kind of like a chainsaw. If you know how to do it and what you're doing, it's going to be great. If you don't, you're going to lose an arm and a leg. And it was like a good example, because it's crazy, but we can't simulate a fashion week for a lot of the production processes that we try. But by owning one, I'm not going to fire myself. Let's not joke. No matter how bad a job I do, I'm going to still say, shit, that guy needs a raise. But we could test the app. We could test the processes, because we've now got a super lean team. We execute the biggest fashion week in South Africa with a team of 5 people, literally, and a few hangers on, but whereas our competitor has, I think, like 11 full-time staff. So yeah, and that's all they focus on. We produce, I think, now 14 other fashion weeks and about 60 other shows globally every year. So it's a lot.
Yeah, and I don't want to get all bubbly here and whatnot, but I'm really proud of you, dude, because if you think about where we started from, again, we were just downloading dodgy videos together on a terrible connection with like 56k modems and whatnot, and then playing with your Avid board and trying to like learn how to do these things. And now to see how far you've come and all the cool things that you've been doing is like really inspiring. It's awesome to see, buddy.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing is like as the journey goes, like every Lagos Fashion Week, I try motivating to get you there. And there's like never the budget. I'm always like, I've got this guy in Milan. He's like amazing. Like, here's his Instagram. He's got to come and just walk around backstage and give us
I'll
pictures.
come. I'll just have fun there. Just let me
And
come.
it's amazing, because kind of like as we've walked the journey, it's amazing. Like people 20 years ago when I was getting started, I'm now using them, and it was like PR companies hiring me to photograph for them, and now I'm giving them work to do our PR, and It's amazing because it is actually just a family that you move along in. And I think we came in and we were the disruptors, and kind of like, this is how it's done, and these are the people. And we were kind of like, wow, those people suck and they cost too much money. And well, it's not that they sucked, we didn't want to use them, but we couldn't afford them, so we came up with a different way of doing it. And kind of like, take your friends along. So the people I rode bikes with, like, they're still our print suppliers. Like, there's a guy I cycle with, and he's printed, and we've rolled stuff, and we've the what do you call, like, the Freemasons Hall in London. I sent him a picture. He printed these things for us, and we got the people to wrap the pillars. And I took it all the way to London. He's like, holy crap, I thought it was for some event in Cape Town. And then randomly, I got woken up one night. He phoned me. He's like, I can't repeat the wording, but it's kind of like, beep, beep, beep. Dude, those pillars you wrapped, I've just seen that building in like that in the new James Bond or something. He's like, I wrapped that building. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah. And it was like crazy. I don't think it was James Bond, but it was some action movie with Jason Statham where he went to this nightclub scene, but it was actually set in Freemasons Hall. And like, he came and like, first thing, my friend, like, Rob's like, holy crap, I've wrapped those pillars. And it was just crazy. It was like, he's not into fashion, he doesn't know what we do, but he prints everything to this day, all our signage and everything. Sorry, the joys, I don't know if you can hear all the beeping. Yeah, no, the joys of having a smart house was, that was my other pet project, as you said, technology. And literally it's telling me driveway gate opening, driveway gate closing, garage door opening, car and driveway. It's identifying. It is Tracy. That's my wife. It's like, damn you, technology. This is beeping.
Pity that you need to have it, but yeah, it's really cool that it exists. South Africa has its own little quirks and things that you have to deal with, and luckily technology exists that can sort of help you out with that. I wanted to go back to a couple of things that I still want to talk to you about, because I know that you might have some other things to do today rather than just sitting here talking to me. One was, you mentioned earlier something about lighting people of color, and that how it's a different skill. And I think that's something that we're starting to hit our heads against here in the city a little bit, because it is a different technique. And now, as the city is becoming more and more diverse, and also clients are asking for more and more diversity in the castings, we're finding out that people don't know how to light people of color.
It is a huge problem, and it's something that from our side, we work in Africa, so it's when you're in London Fashion Week, and you've designed this lighting rig and it looks great, and then the Irish models start walking down. We have the converse. It's just like, gosh, she's blown out. But it's not only, I wouldn't say it's unique to like Europe, where the exposure is less, and as diversity is getting more, even like in New York, we did a show and we received feedback, because although we had quite a diverse set of models, people didn't feel that it was diverse enough. Maybe a little bit too woke audience, if I can use that term, but really it's lighting them is a challenge, especially as things have gone to LED. But also the problem is that the makeup artists struggle with skin, hair people struggle with hair, and this is like a really big problem, especially in South Africa, where we do have more diverse on the catwalk. So it's like a 50% white, 50% black, but maybe it's more like a 33% white, 33% mixed race, 33% black in Cape Town. And we've now learned with casting that just to avoid a lot of the drama, we actually just let the designers decide. And then if anyone gives us hell, we just go, please take it up with the designers. But a lot of the black girls in particular, they do come and they're like, oh, the makeup team, is it going to be able to do my makeup correctly? And luckily we do have great teams where this isn't really a problem. But we noticed in New York that the makeup artist was really struggling with the darker skin girls, and then it gets even more crazy when it starts getting to hair. She crumbled completely. So we actually said to the model, like, let's work with you from the fitting the day before the shows, that you're happy with what you've got. And she zipped and took us through New York and had the hair done at our expense. And but yeah, it's a challenge. And I think if you find a team in especially Europe, or the States, that is able to work with ethnic hair, or the darker models, they're worth their weight in gold, because we've really struggled. And the project we're doing in Paris, like in 2 weeks, I'm there. We will have a lot of dark skin models and hair, and it's been easier in Paris, I must be honest, than a lot of other Euro, especially like UK and stuff. But again, it's we play open when we book the models. We say, listen, we understand this. And it's weird because a lot of the better models generally don't make themselves available for shows, because they worry that these teams are just brought in on like cheapest thing, and then they always look like they've kind of got this ghost face on their skin. But yeah,
or you just can't see anything.
yeah.
That's the sort of problem I had recently, with a makeup artist, and she wanted to use a really dark skinned person, and I was like, but do you know how to do the makeup for that kind of skin? Because it's just not so straightforward. So when I was in first year photography, I had a really good fourth year that would teach me how to do this kind of stuff. And he said, to light black people, you have to light them like cars. You don't. You have to form reflections on their skin rather than actually lighting them.
And the good makeup artists, they will make that 10,000 times. And especially for like beauty, it's that I never shot beauty, but I can't imagine how difficult that is to just make it amazing. And I remember the one Arise Fashion Week we did in Lagos, and every Arise, their big global partner to come out that brings the global press is Naomi. And I remember at like 11:30 one night, when the whole venue was locked down, she came down. Everyone was staying in the same hotel, the Intercontinental, and we were using the ballrooms for the show. And she came down specifically to check that the lighting was good. But that was a crazy one. Like we bought lenses off. We physically bought Source 4s in the UK, and we over FaceTime had people dismantle them so we could get the lenses. And we packed all the lenses in a suitcase and offered everyone. A lot of the Nigerian models got hold of their friends who were living in the UK, and they're like, you've got a free trip home. Like, you just have to bring the suitcase of lenses for the lights. And so they brought like these 2 full suitcases of lenses for the lights, spent the weekend in Lagos, and then flew home. But the lighting was again very specific, and we were shaping, and we were using a very strong backlight, just because we had to light that catwalk white from the back, because we couldn't put too much on the front, because we were otherwise blowing out the clothes. And then all of those images were still sent, and they literally opened up the shadows on the faces to get those images. And it's not unique. Sometimes on darker clothes, we do the clothes on pale models. It just is. And dynamic range is getting better. I'm sure you know that. I recently switched over to Canon's RF system, the new one. What a horrible waste of money. I don't like any of the lenses. They're sharp, but but the way you use it, I can't wrap. I think it's like 20 years of muscle memory I'm now undoing. But it's kind of amazing, because you can turn on the dynamic range and it doesn't kill the image. And the darker models the detail is so good. It's kind of scary, actually. But that's like a full AI. It literally tracks the face, and it exposes and balances it. So again, there's AI embedded in a camera. And yeah.
Craziness. Yeah, the other thing I want to talk to you about, I think it was Balenciaga, not sure. There was one of these really top fashion brands. They had a big 10,000 seater show, and sold the seats.
Montclair.
Oh, Montclair. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And they bankrupt globally, so I can't figure out why they're doing it. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that could be a thing that makes sense for brands to like bring it to the streets a bit more and let people sort of buy tickets?
I think I think if you can bridge the entertainment and the business side, it's incredible, and that's like what Bureau Batak, or like we partners with Villa Eugenie in Paris, and they produce Chanel and Kenzo. They do these monster shows. So you like look at Saint Laurent in front of the Eiffel Tower, and I've got to say, like Alexander at Bureau Batak does amazing work with those shows, and just the whole world runs those amazing pictures. It's a bit like the entertainment and the followers of fashion are being fed, but the business side is really, really crucial because they're spending 600,000, 700,000 euros on that show, but the PR return in sales is just through the roof. It's millions and millions. That collection is sold out like straight from the catwalk, essentially. But I'm all for that. We once had a meeting with Oswald Boateng, a Ghanaian designer who's now based in London. He's one of the big names. There's quite a famous documentary about him. He's also recently just redone all the British Airways uniforms for the first time, I think, like in 3 decades, which ruffled a lot of feathers because technically he's not British, and how can he do British Airways? But and we were going to do a show based off, in the mid-90s he came to Cape Town and he did a tour and he ended up in Khayelitsha. So we were literally going to build a street because the real township is just too congested and too chaotic. So we were going to fake the township on the edge of the township and invite about 2,000 or 3,000 guests to come and watch this spectacular. But unfortunately, just budgets and COVID got in the way, so I need to fire up that conversation again. But yeah, I think it's great. I think if Moncler, and we've got to understand that their holding company is bankrupt, and the brand is not making money, but it's a great way to leapfrog a lot of people for the press. And if the fashion show still ticks all the fashion show boxes, why not have everything around it? Look at what, again, I'm mentioning Alexander. He came up with this crazy concept of people singing and girls walking in lingerie, and you all know that is the Victoria's Secret shows, and those built the brand. And unfortunately, politically correctness killed it, but the brand, with a little bit of shuffling now, is actually starting to do quite well again. But Lagos Fashion Week has 2,000 guests every single night. There are 2,000 people watching that show. It's crazy.
Yeah, but they're not paying guests, are they? They're not paying guests. They invitees.
Yes. So I think it's more a PR stunt than a making money, because you, like on global fashion weeks, you don't sell tickets, so you can't recoup any money. A lot of African fashion weeks do, and a lot of like the sideshow fashion weeks, they try and sell tickets. But yeah, I think it's quite a good PR stunt. It's got a lot of people talking the Moncler thing. And they've built a database. I think there's like 18,000 people on stand. So yeah, that's a lot of people to spam and a lot of Instagram follows. So yeah, it's done really, really well.
That's sick. But because in Milan, the thing is, we have 2 big things. We've got the fashion shows twice a year, 4 times a year, if you call them out, the men's. And then we have the design week. Design week is awesome because anybody can participate. The parties all over the city. It's really inclusive. Also, like somebody that's starting out, you can easily get in touch with people that they need to do things and do some, networking, whatnot. Whereas with Fashion Week, the person on the street is only inconvenience. There are no taxis. There's traffic everywhere. It's a bit of a mess. So the Milanese have this love-hate relationship with the Fashion Week. But if you could make it more inclusive, where the regular person could somehow participate to maybe like a Moncler event or a Gucci event, it would take a bit of the exclusivity away in certain places, but you could add that in some other way. You could make crazy tickets for backstage or whatever. But I think that would make it really, really interesting, and it would be a revenue source. But there must be a reason that they don't do it.
No, but fashion slowly working towards that. Like Milan Design Week, I've got a friend who's a retail architect, and Nick, shame, I feel sorry for him. I think he's about to do a 20-hour flight to Australia at the moment. But he he went last year and he said it was like absolutely incredible. I was just seeing what he was putting on social media, from the Hermes display to the Dior one to the people doing chairs. Like it was really, really amazing. And like our production partner produced a number of those exhibits. So it was really cool to see like the planning in the background, and we do a lot of technical direction and creative direction. Like people come up with these ideas and then they go, okay, here's like a sketch file, like just make it happen, and this is the budget. And then we try and solve the problems on this side. We just like the cheap African labor. And then we send it all back, and we line up all the suppliers, and it works. Well, mostly it works. Just we don't talk about the failures. But as you said, like with those fashion weeks, that's exactly what is happening at the moment. So London Fashion Week always had this, like there was a London Fashion Week and then it ended, and then you had something called London Fashion Weekend, which it was crazy. I think tickets were like £400 to attend, and the cheapest were 200. And you could say you were at Fashion Week. It was the same venue, you just left it there for a week, and the public could attend and go, but it wasn't very inclusive. Because fashion is very like exclusive, and like you're on the outside, we're on the inside. Even in the fashion community, if you're in Milan and you're trying to get into a Prada show, they've got their own PR. You can be accredited for Milan Fashion Week, and they're not going to let you in because they've got their own list, and it's crazy. But that's how it is globally. So the bringing the public in has been an important thing. So like London Fashion Week, and I sit on the British Fashion Council board, where they've now introduced a thing called Citywide, and it starts a week before into the week, because London Fashion Week runs from a Friday to a Tuesday. So it starts on the Monday and it only finishes on the following Friday. And it's 490 events in and around that anybody can go to. Some you'll have to RSVP, some you'll have to buy a ticket, but a lot of them are parties and talks and functions and sure, galleries, like just everything around it. And it's been so well received. And we're trying to do a similar thing here always with Menswear Week, was we don't sell tickets. So we let all the industry in, and then we work out how much additional space we've got. So, okay, we can let in 250 additional people every show. So, and then we design standing room at the back of the audience and everything. And then those tickets, we open it up to what we call our followers of fashion, and they sign up, they get a confirmation email, and we have about 2,000 people a day that come through to attend shows purely because they follow as a fashion. And then we have like open what's called like a fashion installation. So it's like a static fashion show where all the models pose, and that's open for anybody to move through because it runs for about 40 minutes per label. So we open a lot of that up as well. Just there's so many people that want to be part of it, and you can't accommodate them in the show venue. So it's about creating everything around that. And Cape Town's going to launch its first, what we've called the fashion map now, where it's the first Saturday of every single month. All those designer stores stay open. The city sends a few red buses on it, like what we've called the fashion route, and it's completely free. So there'll be like this big fold out map, and you can go to the studios and you can go to the shops. And if you're part of it, you can buy with a discount. And it's just really, fashion has trickled down. And, you know, there's been some super examples, you know, like when Virgil was head designer for Louis Vuitton and he started doing streetwear, all the staid old school people were like, oh crap, you know, this guy's watering down, what's he doing? But they still bought Louis Vuitton, and they still continue to buy Louis Vuitton. But there's a whole new younger generation. Admittedly, it's like that rap crowd that's really rubbish, but I'm probably going to be stoned for anyone watching this. But it and Gucci, like think about it, Gucci and North Face doing a collab, and it's what one of the clients we work with, they keep calling it the democratization of fashion. Like you can get in on the ground floor, and it's quite good, but it's also it's an interesting thing, because you can hook people, and as they grow and their budgets grow, they kind of take ownership of brands, and then they want to grow with the brand. So it may start as a Gucci North Face t-shirt for, I don't know, 150 euros, but it may end with a Gucci tracksuit top for 1,000 euros, or even their higher end stuff, because the fashion brands have tried to bring it down. So like with Chanel, I'm pretty sure no one's going to go buy a 150,000 euro dress from them, but you can buy a pair of 300 euro sunglasses or a fragrance or something like that. So it's interesting, but it will be cool to follow, because essentially they starting with 300 euro sunglasses, and maybe they get their first job, they get promoted, 10 years later they're a manager, they're buying a 2,000 euro tweed jacket or something. And it's interesting because it shows that people are following. And like even recently Swatch did the moon swatch with Omega, same holding company in the background. And like I tried to get one. I like watches, so I was like, I really want one of those. And I was in Paris, and the Champs-Elysees store, like the queue was through the roof. So I was just like, I'm South African, I don't do queues, fuck everybody. And I went into the front, and the guy said to me, he said, I don't even know why people are queuing. We keep telling them we don't have stock. And I was in New York, and I tried, and I couldn't get one. But South Africa, just like we at the back of the queue, and demand has died down. And I tried in Geneva, and Geneva said the same thing. Like, I don't know why people are queuing outside. We don't have this watch. And then it was interesting. Like a week later, I was in Joburg, and I walked into Sandton City, and the guy's like at the Swatch shop. I'm like, do you have? He's like, yeah, pick anyone you want.
Oh, no,
And it was even cheaper. And I was
I've
like,
been trying to buy one,
South
but they
Africa.
still came out. Yeah, I've been trying, and I still haven't been able to find one.
It's
And
cheaper in SA. Maybe what I must do when I'm in
buy me one.
Paris is take a day to come and visit you.
Exactly, exactly. Buy me
And
one,
and and and, and, I, and
and I'll pay for
so
it.
sorry.
Buy me one, and
Yeah,
I'll pay
but
for
it's
it.
interesting because Omega's already said they've had people that are coming in and looking at in their own brand stores, and it's very, very tough to buy some of the watches. Like I'm not deep into, like, hell, I'm wearing an Apple Watch today, but wait, I must put the right face on just to show everybody I am an adult. There we go.
Oh, excellent.
But the the story, I was listening to somebody trying to buy a Rolex, and they really love the scarcity thing. You can't just rock up and buy a Rolex. It's kind of like Hermes with handbags, and you've got to
Oh, yeah.
earn the right to spend thousands on a product. So it's interesting because that's a completely different world away from buying a collab between a designer and a mainstream brand. But yeah, more and more people than ever before. They know brands. They know Balenciaga. They know Chanel. People have always known it, but people are starting to own a little bit of it, and they want to be part of those experiences. So like even the Chanel show, it used to be run once for celebrities and audience, but you're kind of paying for it. So why not run it for like the tier 2 customer and the tier 3 customer afterwards? Just repeat the show 3 times. And if you can do it within 3 hours, they even get that bit of, like, when they put it on their social media, people still think they were at the main show. So yeah, it's interesting because it also opens up like a lot more, like as a photographer at the moment, we've got a brand now this week. London Fashion Week starts, where they're doing the show is actually a live photo shoot. So yeah, like it kind of broad. It's not unique. We didn't come up with the idea. It's a bit cheesy, but that's going to run solidly. And once they've launched it in the UK, it's going to roll out, I think, to 13 cities globally. And essentially, they're taking over empty stores. And it's kind of like you buy, and while you're trying on the stuff, you get to be in this photo shoot, and you actually get the photos. So it's yeah, it's involving a lot of extra people in the value chain. But yeah, I think I must first just get you backstage at Lagos, because it's nowadays it's not the head-on photos. Those are still used and they're super important, but we have something called like a wide angles photographer, and everyone knows a backstage photographer. But instead of just those head-on photos, because of social media, we're now shooting from the side and down, and it's being shot like art and it's being creative. So it's kind of like, Andre, you don't have to get every look, but if we get like 3 photos from this show that just show it amazingly, those are the ones that people are running. So it's been an interesting change. And believe it or not, this literally next week, I've done fashion weeks for 21 years. Mad, crazy. It's time to retire.
Yeah. And we're almost done here as well.
No, no.
But the last thing I have to ask you, because this is the point of the whole thing, going back to South Africa and Africa in general, I know you live in the gilded cage that is Cape Town, so it's a little different.
I live in the middle of suburbia.
That's even worse.
Even worse.
But yeah, how do you feel the sentiment is around you, like the normal people, the people that don't really get involved in politics too much? I know there are elections coming up, but just generally, how do you see the mood is around you?
Well, it is super depressing. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. As you know, I'm busy fighting the tax man at the moment. I've done nothing wrong. It was a calculating error on their side, and I physically, since November, I cannot get anyone to help me. The calls get cut off every day. I'm paying more and more in fines and interest. That's the days where you're just like, I actually can't deal with the dysfunction. And I heard somebody say to me the other day, it's to live in South Africa is exhausting. It really takes a lot. But that said, it's amazing, because the more I travel, everyone gets so excited. Like when you like, oh yeah, what accent? Are you Australian? And I'm like, I'm definitely not Australian. I'm from Cape Town. Well, I should say I'm from Hedonism, but okay. But I'm quite positive, because it's like there's this talk of taxpayers are leaving and the tax base is shrinking. But it again, I read the report. It's not true. It's more and more people, despite an economy and with the electricity cuts and everything that's getting worse and worse. It is growing, and more people are earning more, and they're falling into bigger tax brackets, and there is a growth. So there's more hands on the other side. So to balance out the very positive look at that, there's more and more people saying, well, okay, give me something, and those numbers of people way outnumber the taxpayers. But I think somehow, if we can get through not complete anarchy next year in our election, because also Africa doesn't have a good track record on democracy. A liberating party, I think, has never graciously handed power the first time they've lost. So hopefully South Africa is different. I think we could be, but yeah, it's when I look at some of the rest of the world, I think we actually have it quite good here. And I think there's a lot more, while there's a lot of people that just are not advancing. I'd say, I've got to be so careful how I answer this. There's a lot of people who just, they don't want to be part of moving forward, but there's a lot of people that do. And in a lot of the industries that we touch on, everyone that is willing to work hard, and the people who are passionate about what they do, they booked solidly. And it really doesn't matter if you're a dentist or you're the guy supplying the lights for our shows. It's the good hardworking people are booked solid. You can't get them. And it's, if we are adding, let's say we're doing a part of an awards thing, it's not really, it's like a side business, but we're doing an awards with a gala dinner. Try phoning around to hire catering. And we're not even talking cheap catering. We're talking expensive. And okay, we're going to break the budget. We're going to go more. You physically can't book these people. They are booked solidly into the future. And the people who print for us, their lead times have gone from, oh, we'll sneak it in for you with a week's notice, to like, if you didn't give it to us a month ago, we can't do this for you. And that, it shouldn't be like that. And I keep being told we're in a recession. And when you want to make a booking at a restaurant, well, in my small bubble, I've got to be, you can't get in. There's just no seats. And it's weird. I grew up with my family coming to your dad's restaurant, and now my dad has a restaurant, and it's crazy. But like he was saying, like in theory, there's a recession, there's load shedding, there's everything, yet you physically can't get in. And it's like that across the board. A lot of our designers are reporting it's their best ever cycles, yet interest rates are up and everything. So hopefully this can be sustained, whether the government provides an environment for it to continue. But in theory, we keep being told we're in a really bad space, yet everyone seems to be doing all right. And I've got more people, not you, but I've got other friends that have moved to the rest of the world, and after 15 years, they're starting to come home. A lot of us are like, you're bloody crazy, but they seem quite happy, because there is a lot, I think, to be offered. And then if I go beyond South Africa to the rest of the continent, it's really, again, if you're willing to work hard and you're willing to master what you do, you are going to do really, really well. And I think my business was similar to yours. What we really wanted to do, there's just not a market to support what we wanted to do. And that's how we ended up growing out of South Africa. And then it was interesting because we picked up more work afterwards in South Africa. So yeah, I'm optimistic. Even though I'm fighting SARS at the moment, but yeah, it could be a little bit smoother. Like my team should be in London as we speak, but to physically get a visa appointment is almost impossible. But that's a UK problem, but it's also a South African one, because they've cut back on hours and things. So there are challenges. We all have 2 or 3 passports, because there's always one in for a visa somewhere, and the rest of my team couldn't get their second or third passport in order to get a visa, because it takes like 3 months. So they've been traveling on other ones, and yeah, but we're remote and we're using technology to do it, and it's actually working out better, and we're saving on flights. So yeah, that's exciting. There's also like 2019, I finished on 170 flights for the year, and with COVID, I realized I hated flying, so I'm quite happy to just stay here and then hopefully only fly when I really have to.
Makes sense. Dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. And I'm going to come and visit.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
I haven't been in Milan for many years. And then the one time I think I was there, you were in California, so I don't know what happened.
I make it down.
But I hate flying so much now. I finally mastered the trains across Europe. So yeah, so I'll come and do that. Now that I've mastered the ones out of Paris, I feel it's only a matter of time before I can reach you by train. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Done deal. We have
Absolutely,
witnesses.
buddy. Cool. Thanks so much. Bye. Hey guys, if you got this far, you guys are bloody rock stars, so thank you very much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to do so. Thanks a lot. Bye.